Hi, I'm Rob Dog. Today we're going to be working on a dual Xeon server. We've got two 6-core 12-threaded Xeons in a Supermicro X8D TL-IF motherboard. It's good for, it's got a PCI Express slot, so we can install a graphics card, and it's got 6 DDR3 slots, so we can add in some DDR3 memory. I think it supports up to 128 gigabytes of RAM. We've also got 6 SATA 6 ports on the bottom here for hard drives and storage media. We're going to be, the Xeons are the Xeon X5650 processors. So if you want to look those up online, they run about 20 to 30 bucks a piece. Really good bang for a buck here. You get a lot of performance. These are equivalent to i7s. So we'll be running the Cinebench on this later to kind of go through that. These will be the heat sinks here. We're going to use these to dissipate the heat off the processors. They'll be set up in passive mode. They don't have active coolers on them, so they should be okay. Though we've got some pretty high-end fans in here to blow air through the case, so we should be just fine on that. We'll be monitoring temperatures and stuff like that in the future. But join me today while we stick this in this Supermicro chassis. Okay, so now we'll be taking the old motherboard out of the case here, along with the other stuff that's with it, wiring, so on and so forth. Pretty straightforward process here because we know exactly how it goes. Pulling out the PCI network card there. The RAM, power headers here for the motherboard. We're taking all this stuff out of here to install the new motherboard. You want to save your screws. You will be needing them for the new board, unless you have some spare laying around. You know, you can use pretty much any computer screw. Now, I like to use the ones with the hex head on the top. But it's up to you. So we're taking that board out. No back plate, so first thing is we'll go ahead and add the back plate in here. So I like to take these tabs, depending on, it looks like it has 2 Ethernet ports, so we're just going to leave the 2 Ethernet port tabs open there. And this snaps in the back right here. Like so. Wiping off all the old thermal compound that's on the processor, or heatsink here. I got these used online. I think I spent $8 on the pair, so I mean, really a good value. I mean, we're into this whole build for under $100, so I mean, we're really doing good here. So now that we got that cleaned off, we'll be able to go ahead and mount our CPU coolers to our processors. I'm going to go ahead and clean these off one last time here. And then we will be taking some thermal compound And I normally like to, it depends on what you like. Now these ship with thermal compound on them whenever you buy them brand new on the heat sinks. So I prefer probably just to put thermal compound back on the heat sinks. That inner copper die there is about the same exact size as the processor. So really all you've got to do is take a little bit of thermal compound and put it on the center of the die there. Now, yeah, that does look like a lot of thermal paste, but it's a pretty good size processor, so we'll be kind of hefty with how much we put on here, and that should be plenty right there for this build. So then the next part is just to line these up and bolt them down. Processors are already installed. That process is pretty simple. Basically, there's a retainer bracket here, and you fold it up. The processor lifts out. It's 0 insertion force. The back of it looks like this here. There's a bunch of they call this an LGA socket. This is a land grid array, meaning that there are no pins that stick out of the back of the processor. The pins are actually on the motherboard socket itself. So then you just take the processor, a pretty good sized die there for a Xeon. You'll just take I've seen them bigger, but you just take the processor and you lay it down very carefully, lining it up with the arrow at the front of the socket here on the corner. And then you just press the retention bracket down like so, and that processor's installed. It's really, really simple. We'll be trying to see, I'd like to have these installed like so. It does look like it's going to sit the right way. So we don't want it touching the we don't want it to be touching the capacitors here on the back side. So, but they've made them short for this reason, so we should be good here. So basically, we just take it like that, and we'll start to tighten down one of the corners here. And I like to go in a cross pattern like this, so I get even pressure on the motherboard. And it doesn't take a whole lot. It's just got to be on there enough to keep it clamped down and make proper pressure on the socket. And we'll give it the old movement test. That's probably pretty good. Maybe a little bit more over here on this corner. I like it to be pretty solid on there. The firmer the hold, the better the thermal dissipation. So we'll go with something like that right there for that one. And then we'll do this one the same. So we'll be setting that in there like so. And remember, we've already put our thermal compound on this, so we're good there. Remember, just keep the crosshatch pattern going on here until you get it right about where you want it. I go about halfway down on these. That normally seems to be a pretty good spot for it to be. We'll just kind of check it to make sure that it's on there tight, and it seems to be good for both of those. So then we'll take our wipe and we'll clean off our fingerprints here for maximum photability later, so we can take some pictures of it when we're done. Now, I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be right back. And we'll be installing the RAM and setting it up and getting it booted up. We will be adding in 4 gig sticks of Corsair value select memory, DDR3. It's cheap. Like I said, we're in this build for less than $100. So normally each processor has its own bank for memory. So you'll want to install in the one that says 1. That is going to be, we're going to do it like so. Normally it's closest to the processor. So we're going to go in right there. 1 stick. That's installed. Then we're going to flip her around here. We're going to go in right here with another stick. And that's installed. So now we've got 8 gigs of memory split between 2 processors. Next thing we'll be doing is installing it in the case here. What I like to do is check to make sure that my screws are going to screw into the inserts here. Standoffs actually. And go ahead and mount my board in like so. Careful not to scratch the back plate of the motherboard, or not the back plate, but the back of the motherboard while inserting it into the proper position. Once inserted, I like to try to get it over as close as I can to where it's supposed to finally set. And then I'll take my, and I'll normally just hold on to these heat sinks like I am right now. And I'll take my screw and I'll find a good spot here. And I'll run it down. Just to hold it up there so that way I can put the rest in. I'll just put one in for now, just to kind of get it held up here in place so it doesn't go moving around. So there we go. It's now inserted into the computer, so we'll just repeat the process all the way around the board here. All the screw holes that are open, just screw it down. Like I said, I cleared out these 2 slots here for these fans to fit in to where we could actively cool this processor up here. So we'll be sliding these in there. Just like so. And we only need 2. We don't need 20 of them, so there's that. And then we'll just be snapping in these hard drives.